Today's top story is a potentially huge development in the Hunter Biden case, and a credible FBI whistleblower alleges a bribery scheme headed by former Vice President Joe Biden. All that on this May the 4th edition of The Breakdown. Now, before we get started, if you get to the end of this video and find it informative, and you will, please consider subscribing to the channel. Despite YouTube's best efforts, we're closing in on 1 million subscribers. And with 70% of you watching not even being subscribed yet, we could get there by tomorrow. As a bonus, might just cause YouTube to implode. I'll bet you want to find out. Well, on to our stories. On Tuesday, Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley joined forces to formally accuse Secretary of State Anthony Blinken of giving Congress a patently false account in 2020 of his dealings with Hunter Biden when his father was vice president. Quote, on December the 22nd, 2020, you provided false testimony to Congress during your voluntary transcribed interview, end quote. This is what they wrote, going on to remind him that he'd been reminded by staff in the hearing that it was a crime to lie to Congress. You acknowledged your understanding of that statute and stated there is no reason you would be unable to provide truthful answers during the interview. Well, in that December 2020 testimony, when asked whether or not he'd ever talked with Hunter Biden on the phone or corresponded with him in any other way, he said he didn't recall ever doing so. Senators Johnson and Grassley seem to have found some evidence to the contrary, namely in the form of actual email communications between Blinken and Hunter, wherein Blinken even used his personal email address and spoke with Hunter on matters relating to an in-person meeting they'd had at the State Department. Now, their letter continued. Your statement to Congress that you did not email Hunter Biden is clearly not true and calls into question the veracity of your entire testimony, they wrote. Specifically, you denied having any awareness of Hunter Biden's association with the corrupt Ukrainian gas company Burisma Holdings. Blinken's wife, Evan Ryan, had corresponded with Hunter, also through personal email, all about connecting her husband with Burisma's U.S. lobbying firm, Blue Star Strategies. Quote, it seems highly unlikely that you had no idea of Hunter Biden's association with Burisma while your wife was apparently coordinating with Hunter Biden to potentially connect you with Burisma's U.S. representatives. This is also part of what they said. They described Blinken as the catalyst for Michael Morell's now infamous classic earmarks letter to discredit the laptop story about Hunter Biden back in October of 2020, saying, it is now apparent that your willingness to deceive the public continued through December 2020 when you failed to tell the whole truth to congressional investigators about your contacts with Hunter Biden. Because your testimony is inaccurate, they wrote, Congress and the public must rely on your records as the source for information about your dealings with Hunter Biden. Accordingly, both Blinken and his wife were told to preserve all records relating to Hunter Biden, his business dealings, and his family's business dealings through both official and personal email and phone, and to provide them no later than May 15th. While this ought to be a slam-dunk conviction of perjury, since Republicans are in the minority in the Senate, their committee members don't have subpoena power, which will certainly slow things down a lot. But the letter was copied to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, as well as to House Oversight and Accountability Committee Chairman James Comer, who do have subpoena power. On Tuesday, investigative reporter John Solomon characterized the letter as a dramatic escalation in their feud with Team Biden. He went on to review what we know about Morell's testimony before the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees in April, all about a phone conversation with Tony Blinken that led to the creation of the, quote, classic earmarks letter. Blinken didn't directly tell him to write the letter, Morell had testified, but Blinken sent him information that was used in the letter. After the presidential debate a few days later, in which then candidate Biden used the letter to falsely denounce the laptop story, the campaign had called to express their gratitude. Of course they did. They must have been extremely grateful. I mean, talking about a slick move. And then, of course, it was just a few months after Blinken got the ball rolling to discredit the true laptop story that he lied to Congress about ever having contact with Hunter Biden. The only defense Blinken has offered is the very narrow statement that the letter wasn't his idea. Pennsylvania Representative Scott Perry has gotten involved as well, writing a letter on April the 30th to key oversight committees in both House and Senate, urging them to look into whether the Justice Department has let Hunter off easy by knowingly and purposefully allowing the statute of limitations to expire on certain transactions. The DOJ's motivation might be to protect the rest of the family, specifically the big guy. You know, the big guy, Joe Biden, from revelations about transactions related to Joe Biden's position as vice president. The transactions they seem to be looking at are only smaller, recent transactions. They're just a drop in the bucket. Now, in the midst of all of this, you would think that Joe Biden would have something to say about this, but since he doesn't take any questions, we're just going to have to settle for answers from White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
We have a report on the DOJ nearing a decision on whether to charge President Biden's son Hunter with tax and gun-related violations. I wonder if the White House has any comment on this case, if it's something the president has been following, or if he talks to Hunter about this case at all.
I would have to refer you to Department of Justice.
It seems that Hunter, or at least his much smarter attorneys, knows this and that things are starting to heat up. This would explain why just last week attorneys for the president's son met with top Justice Department officials. Even CNN noted how peculiar this was.
Well, we know this was a meeting between some of Hunter Biden's criminal defense attorneys and top Justice Department officials. Now, our colleagues, Eileen Grafe and Steve Williams, caught that exclusive video. There you can see one of Hunter Biden's attorneys, Chris Clark, along with some of his associates entering that building, which is the Justice Department headquarters in Washington. And on Friday, we broke the story that there would be a meeting between these two sides. And that is significant because there has not been a public development in this criminal investigation into the president's son in nearly a year.
Even CNN is starting to pay attention. Wow. That leads to another story that broke this week, this time about Hunter's dad, big guy, Joe Biden. As Fox News reported yesterday, Congressman James Comer and Senator Chuck Grassley, well, they're demanding answers over an alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions. Here's the Fox News report on that.
The House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says that he's issued a subpoena to the FBI in a letter that he and Senator Chuck Grassley have sent to Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Chris Wray. They write that a, quote, highly credible whistleblower says the Justice Department and FBI have a form that, quote, describes an alleged criminal scheme involving then President Biden and a former national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions.
Remember all the cries of quid pro quo against then-President Trump for his call with Ukrainian Vladimir Zelensky? Trump's ask was for Zelensky to investigate the Biden sketchy dealings with Burisma. This benign request was blown up into an impeachment of President Trump. If this bribery allegation against Biden turns out to be true, little will happen to the sitting president, but at the very least, the gross hypocrisy of the media and Democrats will be on full display to the public. And that's something to look forward to. After all, nothing will change if people don't see the need for it. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. We're almost at 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Almost 70% of you watching right now, you haven't clicked that subscribe button. And if all of you did, we'd hit 1 million by now. Leave a like and a comment if you found this video informative. And be sure to tune in to the Live with Mike live stream for more news coverage and questions and answers. If you want more of my news analysis and commentary, be sure to sign up for my newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. It's completely free, comes to your email inbox twice a day. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Mike Huckabee.